The stars shone coldly in the vast emptiness of space, as the 7 massive ships of the Kralaxian Empire moved silently toward the small blue planet. For 10,000 years, the Kralaxians had ruled the galaxy with an iron grip. They had conquered hundreds of alien species across thousands of worlds. To them, this was just another world to add to their collection. Emperor Zorn VII sat on his throne aboard the command ship. His gray skin wrinkled as he frowned at the holographic image of Earth floating before him. "Such a small world," he said to his advisors. "And yet they send out these radio signals. Primitive technology, but it shows intelligence." His chief military advisor, General Draz, bowed low. "Our scouts report they have basic space travel, my Emperor. Nothing beyond their own moon. They will fall quickly, like all the others." Zorn nodded. This was how it always went. Find a new world, send in the ships, crush any resistance, and add another species to the Empire's workforce. The Kralaxians hadn't lost a war in thousands of years. Why would this time be any different? "Proceed with standard conquest protocol," the Emperor ordered. Alex Powell yawned as he stared at the monitoring screens in his small station on Europa, one of Jupiter's moons. As a lieutenant commander in Earth's Defense Force, his job was to watch for anything unusual in the outer solar system. Most days that meant tracking asteroids and comets. Nothing exciting ever happened. Until today. Powell's coffee cup froze, halfway to his lips as new readings appeared on his screen. 7 objects moving too fast and too straight to be natural. And they were big, really big. "Computer, confirm readings," he said, suddenly wide awake. "Confirmed," the computer replied. 7 artificial objects approaching from Sector 19. Mass estimates suggest vessels approximately 2.3 kilometers in length each. Powell felt his heart race. After years of debate about whether aliens existed, he was looking at proof. And they were heading straight for Earth. His fingers flew across the control panel as he opened a secure channel to EDF headquarters in Denver. "This is Europa Station to Command. Priority Alpha. I have visual confirmation of 7 unidentified vessels entering the solar system. Repeat, 7 vessels. They're not ours." On Earth, Admiral Catherine Hayes was in the middle of her morning briefing when Powell's message came through. The room fell silent as the officers listened to his report. "Send me the data now," Hayes ordered, her face calm despite the news. 25 years in the Defense Force had taught her to think clearly in a crisis. The information appeared on the main screen. Even the most skeptical officers couldn't deny what they were seeing. "Get me the President," Hayes said. "And alert all EDF stations. We may have first contact." Within an hour, President Sam Miller and the Joint Chiefs gathered in the underground war room beneath Denver. The mood was tense as they watched the alien ships approach Mars. "Have they responded to our signals?" the President asked. Hayes shook her head. "We've tried all frequencies. They're not answering. Or they don't want to answer," General Frank Roberts added darkly. President Miller rubbed his forehead. "What are our options if they're hostile?" Hayes nodded to her chief science officer, Dr. Olivia Martinez. The scientist stood and activated a holographic display showing a network of satellites around Earth. "This is the Aegis defense system," Martinez explained. "It's experimental, but it's our best option. A network of energy weapons and shields that can protect our major cities and military bases." "Will it work against their technology?" the President asked. Martinez answered honestly. "We don't know. We've never faced alien weapons before." The President looked at the approaching ships on the main screen. They had passed Mars now and showed no signs of slowing down. "Power up the system," he ordered, "and get our ships in position." Captain Eric Bennett stood on the bridge of the EDF flagship Valiant as it moved into position between Earth and the approaching aliens. At 42, Bennett had spent half his life in space, but nothing had prepared him for this moment. "All weapons systems ready, sir," his weapons officer reported. Bennett nodded, his blue eyes fixed on the view screen. "Let's hope we don't need them." The alien ships were visible now without sensors, 7 massive dark shapes against the stars, each one bigger than the largest human vessels ever built. "Try hailing them again," Bennett ordered. His communications officer shook her head after a minute. No response, sir. Bennett made his decision. Fire warning shots. Let's show them we're serious. Bright energy pulses shot across the alien's path, deliberately missing but impossible to ignore. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, without warning, beams of green light shot from the lead alien ship. 2 of Earth's defense satellites exploded into clouds of debris. "They fired on our satellites," the sensor officer shouted. Bennett's face hardened. "So much for peaceful first contact. Activate Aegis system. All ships, battle positions." As alarms sounded throughout the Valiant, Bennett opened a channel to Earth. "Admiral Hayes, the aliens have opened fire. We are engaging." In her laboratory on Luna Base, Dr. Olivia Martinez watched the battle unfold through her viewport. As head scientist for the EDF, she had spent years developing defenses against possible alien threats. Many had called her paranoid. Now those same people were glad for her paranoia. "Their beam weapons are powerful," she said to her assistant, "but they don't seem to use any form of shielding technology." She studied the readings from the battle. The alien ships were firing continuously, but they weren't trying to dodge Earth's return fire. It was as if they didn't expect any resistance at all. "They're overconfident," Martinez realized. "They think this is going to be easy." Commander Vextar of the Kralaxian Imperial Fleet was annoyed. According to all his information, this planet should have surrendered by now. Instead, the primitive humans were actually fighting back. "Target their largest vessel," he ordered his weapons officer. "Show them the futility of resistance." Green energy beams lanced out toward the Valiant, but instead of destroying the human ship, the beams scattered against an invisible barrier. "They have shield technology?" Vextar asked in disbelief. His science officer looked equally shocked. "Impossible. Their development level shouldn't allow for such technology." On board the Valiant, Bennett allowed himself a small smile as the alien weapons failed to penetrate their shields. "Dr. Martinez's shield modifications are holding," his science officer reported. "But they won't last forever against this kind of firepower." Bennett nodded. "Then let's not give them time to wear us down. All ships attack pattern Delta, target their weapon systems." The human fleet moved with unexpected coordination, breaking into smaller groups and attacking the alien vessels from multiple angles. The Kralaxians, used to enemies who either surrendered immediately or fought in predictable patterns, struggled to respond. Emperor Zorn frowned as he received the first reports from the battle. "They're actually fighting back? And effectively?" General Draz looked uncomfortable. "It appears we underestimated them, my Emperor. Their technology is more advanced than our scouts reported." "How is this possible?" Zorn demanded. "Unknown, my Emperor. But more concerning is their battle strategy. They fight unpredictably, not like any species we've encountered before." Zorn waved this away. "It doesn't matter. Deploy the second wave. Crush their resistance quickly." As the battle entered its third hour, Admiral Hayes received reports from the front lines. Against all odds, Earth's forces were holding their own. 3 human ships had been destroyed, but they had damaged 2 alien vessels and completely disabled another. "The Aegis system is working better than we expected," she told the president. "And Captain Bennett's battle tactics are keeping the aliens off balance." President Miller looked both worried and hopeful. "Can we win this?" Hayes chose her words carefully. "I don't know if we can win yet, but we can definitely make them regret starting this fight." As the Kralaxians launched their second wave of attack ships toward Earth, they expected the humans to finally break. Instead, they encountered even fiercer resistance. What the aliens didn't understand, what would become their greatest mistake, was that humans had spent their entire history fighting. Unlike the peaceful species the Kralaxians usually conquered, humans had been waging war against each other for thousands of years. Every terrible invention, every brutal tactic, every hard-learned lesson had prepared them for this moment. As night fell over Earth, people looked up at the flashes of light in the sky where their defenders fought against an alien threat. In Aitao, cities and towns across the world, humans did what they had always done in the face of danger. They adapted. They prepared. They refused to give up. And in space, The battle continued. The Kralaxians would learn too late that they had attacked the one species in the galaxy that had been preparing for war since the dawn of their civilization. Their first mistake was attacking Earth. Their biggest mistake was thinking humans would ever surrender. 3 days had passed since the Kralaxians first entered Earth's solar system. Commander Vextar stood on the bridge of his damaged flagship, looking at the holographic display of the battle. 2 of his 7 ships were completely destroyed. Another was so badly damaged it could barely move. This was not how conquests were supposed to go. "Impossible," he hissed, his gray skin turning darker with anger. "Their technology should be centuries behind ours." His second-in-command, Sub-Commander Larn, looked equally confused. "Our intelligence reports clearly showed they had only achieved basic spaceflight. They shouldn't have energy shields or weapons that can damage our hulls." Vextar slammed his fist on the control panel. In 10 years of leading conquest missions, he had never failed. The Emperor would not be pleased. "Send a message to the homeworld," he ordered. "Request reinforcements." On Earth, Admiral Hayes stood in the war room, looking at the same battle displays from the human perspective. The room was filled with military leaders, government officials, and scientists working around the clock. "We've held them off for now," she said to President Miller. "But our ships and crews are exhausted, and we've lost nearly 30% of our fleet." The president looked grim. "What's your assessment? Will they retreat?" Hayes shook her head. "No. Based on their behavior, this species doesn't retreat. They'll either bring more ships or try a new approach." Dr. Martinez stepped forward, her eyes bright with excitement despite having barely slept in 3 days. "Admiral, I've been studying the data from our battles. I think I've found something important." She brought up detailed scans of the alien ships on the main screen. "Look at their hull structure. It's designed to withstand frontal energy attacks, but it's much weaker at these junction points." She pointed to where different sections of the alien ships connected. "If we can hit them precisely at these points, we could disable their ships with much less firepower." Hayes studied the information. "Good work, Doctor. This could give us an edge." "There's more," Martinez continued. "Their ships produce an unusual radiation signature when they communicate with each other. If we can decode their transmissions, we might be able to predict their next moves." The president looked hopeful for the first time in days. How long would that take? "With normal methods? Weeks, maybe months," Martinez admitted. "But I know someone who might be able to do it faster." Kevin Wright had been a network security engineer before the invasion. Now he sat in a hastily assembled lab beneath Denver, surrounded by computers and alien communication data. When Dr. Martinez had called him with the assignment, he'd been skeptical. "You want me to decode an alien language?" he'd asked in disbelief. "Not the language itself," Martinez had explained. "Just their transmission patterns. Think of it as breaking their encryption, not understanding their words." Now, after 36 hours of non-stop work, Wright was making progress. The aliens used patterns. Everything they did was based on mathematical sequences. Once he recognized that, the work became easier. "It's not so different from Earth encryption," he muttered to himself as he typed. "Just more complex." His computer screen flashed green as another piece of the puzzle fell into place. Major Susan Richards checked her weapon one final time as her shuttle approached the damaged alien vessel. As leader of the first human boarding party, she knew the dangers all too well. No human had ever set foot on an alien ship before. "Remember your training," she told her team of 12 Marines. "We don't know what we'll find in there, but we need their navigation data and weapon schematics. Stay tight, watch each other's backs, and follow the plan." The shuttle docked with a soft thud against the alien hull. Engineers quickly attached a cutting tool to the outer door, and within minutes they had created an entrance. Richards went first, her weapon ready. The corridor beyond was dimly lit with a greenish glow. The air was breathable but had a strange metallic smell. "Move out," she ordered quietly. The team advanced through the alien ship, encountering little resistance at first. The few Kralaxian crew members they did meet seemed shocked at the sight of armed humans on their vessel. "They weren't expecting us to board them," Richards realized. "They've never had to defend against this." using the ship schematics that Dr. Martinez had pieced. Together from battle scans, Richards led her team toward what they believed was the command center. As they got closer, they finally met organized resistance. "Take cover," Richards shouted as energy beams shot down the corridor toward them. The firefight was brief, but intense. The Kralaxians had superior weapons, but they weren't used to close quarters combat. The human Marines, who had trained for exactly this kind of situation, quickly gained the upper hand. Within 30 minutes of boarding, Richards and her team had secured the alien command center. The cost had been high, 2 Marines dead and 3 wounded, but they had achieved their objective. "Control room secure," Richards reported over her comlink. "Beginning data download now." Back at EDF headquarters, Kevin Wright's computer suddenly lit up with new information. "I've got it," he exclaimed, rushing to find Admiral Hayes. "I've cracked their basic communication patterns." Hayes looked up from her battle plans. "Can you understand what they're saying?" "Not the words, no," Wright explained. "But I can tell when they're giving orders, when they're reporting status, and, most importantly, I can track their fleet movements based on their communication signals." He showed her his screen, where dots of light represented alien ships, moving in formation. "They're planning another attack," Hayes realized, studying the pattern. "But now we can see where they're going before they get there." For the first time since the invasion began, Hayes allowed herself a small smile. "Good work, Wright. This changes everything." On the Kralaxian flagship, Vextar received disturbing news. "Vessel 4 has gone silent," his communications officer reported. "No response to any signals." "How is that possible?" Vextar demanded. "It was damaged, but still operational." "Unknown, Commander. The last transmission mentioned primitive life forms inside the ship, but that makes no sense. How would humans get aboard?" Vextar's eyes narrowed. These humans were proving far more resourceful than expected. In all the Empire's long history of conquest, they had never encountered a species that adapted so quickly to new threats. "Change of plans," he announced to his bridge crew. "We will attack their moon base next. Their main fleet is defending the planet, so the moon should be vulnerable." What Vextar didn't know was that Kevin Wright was listening to this transmission. Within minutes, Admiral Hayes knew exactly what the aliens were planning. Captain Eric Bennett sat in his command chair aboard the Valiant, hidden behind Earth's moon along with 15 other ships. Thanks to Wright's breakthrough, they knew the Kralaxians were coming, and this time, Earth forces would be ready. "All ships, maintain radio silence," Bennett ordered quietly. "Let them think they've caught us by surprise." His weapons officer, Lieutenant Amy Garcia, monitored her station. "Weapons hot, shields at maximum. We're ready, Captain." Bennett nodded. The past 3 days had been the hardest of his career. He'd lost friends as alien weapons tore through Earth ships, but they had learned from each encounter, adapting their tactics, finding weaknesses in the alien technology. "They think we're primitive," he said to his bridge crew. "Let's show them how wrong they are." The battle for Luna Base began exactly as Hayes had predicted. The Kralaxian ships approached the human moon base from what they thought was a hidden vector. But Bennett's ships were waiting. Now. Bennett ordered as the aliens came into range. 16 Earth vessels suddenly appeared from behind the moon, weapons firing at the precise weak points Dr. Martinez had identified. The Kralaxians, caught completely by surprise, suffered devastating damage in the first few minutes. On Earth, President Miller watched the battle unfold on the main screen. "They're retreating," he said in amazement as the alien ships pulled back. Hayes nodded. "This battle, yes, but the war is far from over." "What do you mean?" Hayes pointed to the long-range scanners. Wright decoded more of their transmissions. "They've called for reinforcements. A full invasion fleet is coming." The room fell silent as everyone absorbed this news. "How many ships?" the president finally asked. "At least 100, Hayes answered. "Maybe more." Miller stood straighter, his face set with determination. "Then we better prepare. How long do we have?" 3 weeks, maybe 4. The president looked around the room at the assembled military leaders and scientists. "Then we have work to do." If they want Earth, they'll have to fight for every inch of it. Across the solar system, the news spread quickly. Humanity had won its first victory against an alien invader, but the real test was still to come. In his meditation chamber aboard the flagship, Commander Vextar received word that Emperor Zorn had approved his request for reinforcements. The main battle fleet was on its way. These humans will learn what it means to defy the Kralaxian Empire, he promised himself. What Vextar failed to understand, what would prove to be the Empire's biggest mistake, was that humans had been fighting against impossible odds throughout their entire history. And they had survived by doing what the Kralaxians could not: adapt, improvise, and overcome. The real war was just beginning. The Kralaxian main battle fleet arrived in Earth's solar system 3 weeks later. 100 massive warships appeared at the edge of Pluto's orbit, their dark hulls blocking out the distant stars. Each ship was nearly twice the size of the vessels from the first attack. On Earth, Admiral Catherine Hayes stood in the command center, watching the enemy fleets approach on the large screen. President Miller and the Joint Chiefs of Staff stood silently beside her. 100 ships, General Roberts whispered. How can we possibly fight that many? Hayes had been asking herself the same question for 3 weeks. After the victory, at Luna Base, Earth's forces had been working non-stop to prepare for this moment. But even with everything they had learned, the odds seemed impossible. We need to be smarter, not bigger, she finally answered. The Kralaxians expect us to defend Earth directly. We won't do what they expect. She turned to face the room full of military leaders. Here's my plan. Instead of positioning our forces around Earth, we'll scatter them throughout the solar system. Some of the officers looked confused. You want to divide our forces? One asked in disbelief. Hayes nodded. Exactly. The Kralaxians fight in rigid formations. They expect us to do the same. They want one big battle where their superior numbers will crush us. We're going to give them 100 small battles instead. She pointed to different areas on the solar system map. Captain Bennett's Valiant and 30 other ships will hide in Saturn's rings. Major Richards will lead a group that will use Jupiter's radiation belts as cover. Smaller squads will position themselves in the asteroid belt and various Lagrange points. President Miller studied the plan. And Earth itself? What defenses will remain here? Hayes took a deep breath. This was the riskiest part of her strategy. Minimal visible defenses. We want them to think we've abandoned Earth to protect our colonies, that we're running scared. The room erupted in concerned voices, but Hayes raised her hand for silence. Trust me, when they move in to take Earth thinking it's defenseless, they'll find themselves in a carefully laid trap. She nodded to Dr. Martinez, who stepped forward. For the past 3 weeks, my team has been working on something we call Project Thunderclap, Martinez explained. She brought up a diagram on the main screen showing a network of devices positioned in Earth's upper atmosphere. It's essentially a massive electromagnetic pulse weapon built into our atmosphere. When activated, it will create an electromagnetic wave that will wash over any ships in Earth orbit, disrupting their power systems. Will it work? The president asked. Martinez looked confident. Based on what we've learned from the captured Kralaxian ships, yes. Their technology is vulnerable to this kind of attack, Hayes continued. Once their ships lose power, our scattered forces will converge from all directions. The Kralaxians won't know what hit them. The room fell silent as everyone considered the plan. It was bold, risky, and unlike any battle strategy Earth had ever attempted. It's our best chance, Hayes added quietly. President Miller nodded slowly. Make it happen, Admiral. Kralaxian Admiral Crux stood on the bridge of his massive flagship, surveying the solar system on his tactical display. The primitive humans had given Commander Vexitar's small force more trouble than expected, but Crux had brought enough firepower to conquer 10 worlds. The humans seemed to have scattered their forces, his sensor officer reported. Many ships are fleeing to the outer planets, Crux made a sound of contempt. As expected, primitive species always panic when confronted with our main battle fleet. They're trying to save their colony outposts rather than fight for their homeworld. He turned to Vextar, who stood stiffly nearby. The commander had been demoted after his failure to quickly subjugate Earth. "You said these humans were unusual fighters," Kruk said. "Yet they run at the first sight of our true power. Perhaps your assessment was flawed." Fextar wanted to protest, to warn Krux that the humans were crafty and adaptable. But he knew better than to argue with a superior officer. "Set course for Earth," Krux ordered his navigation officer. "We will show these humans the price of resistance." As the massive fleet moved toward Earth, Krux was confident in his victory. The Empire had conquered 1,000 worlds with the same strategy. Earth would be no different. Kevin Wright sat in his lab beneath Denver, monitoring the Kralaxian communications. Over the past weeks, he had become increasingly skilled at decoding their transmissions. "They're heading straight for Earth," he reported to Hayes over the secure channel. "They think we've abandoned it." Hayes nodded. "Good. Everything is proceeding as planned." Wright continued working on his computer. Besides monitoring enemy communications, he had been developing something else. A virus that could infiltrate the aliens' computer systems once their security protocols were disrupted by the EMP. "It's like a digital Trojan horse," he had explained to Hayes earlier. "Once inside their network, we can control their navigation and life support systems." Now, as the countdown to the battle began, Wright made the final adjustments to his virus. Everything would have to work perfectly if Earth was to have any chance of survival. Captain Eric Bennett and his crew waited silently in the darkness of Saturn's rings. The Valiant and its sister ships had powered down all non-essential systems to avoid detection. Only life support and minimal sensors remained active. "Kralaxian fleet has entered Mars orbit," his communications officer whispered. "ETA to Earth, 6 hours. Bennett checked the time. Soon they would begin their long burn toward Earth. Timing would be critical. They needed to arrive just after the EMP weapon activated. In Jupiter's radiation belts, Major Susan Richards and her ships made similar preparations. The harsh radiation made it the perfect hiding place. The Kralaxian sensors couldn't penetrate the interference. Richards checked her weapon from habit. The boarding action on the Kralaxian ship had made her a hero on Earth, but she took no pleasure in it. 2 of her team hadn't made it back. She had written letters to their families, promising that their sacrifice would not be in vain. Now she had a chance to make good on that promise. 3 days later, the Kralaxian fleet moved into Earth orbit. Admiral Krux was puzzled by the lack of resistance. A few defensive satellites fired at his ships, but they were easily destroyed. Earth's military bases showed minimal activity. "The humans have fled," he reported to Emperor Zorn. "The homeworld is defenseless." On his throne millions of miles away, Emperor Zorn nodded in satisfaction. "Begin the final bombardment. Make an example of their major cities so that all who resist us will remember the price of defiance." The 100 ships of the Kralaxian fleet moved into bombardment position, spreading out to cover the entire planet. Their weapon systems powered up, preparing to rain destruction on the cities below. In the underground command center, President Miller watched the alien ships position themselves on the tactical display. "They're in position," he said to Hayes. She nodded grimly. "Perfect position." She opened a secure channel to Dr. Martinez at the Thunderclap control station. "Doctor, are we ready?" "Yes, Admiral," Martinez replied. "All systems green. Awaiting your order." Hayes looked at the president. This was the moment everything depended on. If Thunderclap failed, Earth would be defenseless against the bombardment. President Miller took a deep breath and gave the order. "Activate Thunderclap." Dr. Martinez pressed the activation sequence. Around the world, hidden devices in the upper atmosphere powered up simultaneously. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then a wave of electromagnetic energy rippled outward from Earth, invisible but incredibly powerful. In orbit, the Kralaxian ship suddenly went dark. Power systems failed, weapons shut down, and communication networks went silent. The mighty battle fleet, terror of 1,000 worlds, drifted helplessly in orbit. Admiral Krux stared in disbelief as his flagship's systems shut down one by one. Emergency lighting cast an eerie red glow over the bridge. "What is happening?" he demanded. Restore power immediately." His crew worked frantically, but nothing responded. And then something even more alarming happened. The ship's computers reactivated, but they weren't responding to Kralaxian commands. Words in human English appeared on their screens as Kevin, Wright's virus, took control. Outside, the scattered human forces converged from all directions. Captain Bennett's ships came in from Saturn. Major Richards's squadron arrived from Jupiter. Dozens of other vessels appeared from hiding places throughout the solar system. The battle that followed was decisive. Human ships, specifically designed to function in the aftermath of the EMP, systematically disabled or destroyed the powerless Kralaxian vessels. Major Richards led boarding parties onto the Kralaxian flagship itself. This time, she met little resistance as she fought her way to the bridge and captured Admiral Crux. When the dust settled, 60% of the Kralaxian battle fleet had been destroyed or captured. The remainder retreated in disarray, limping back toward Kralaxian space with news of an unprecedented defeat. For the first time in 10,000 years, the Kralaxian Empire had lost a war, and humanity was just getting started. 6 months after the Battle of Earth, humanity was ready to take the fight to the enemy. The war had entered a new phase. Earth was no longer just defending itself. It was preparing to strike back at the heart of the Kralaxian Empire. Admiral Catherine Hayes stood on the bridge of the Defiance, a new vessel that combined human innovation with captured Kralaxian technology. The ship was twice the size of any previous human vessel, with weapons and engines reverse-engineered from the alien ships captured during the battle for Earth. Looking out at the stars, Hayes addressed the crew gathered on the bridge. Men and women from every nation on Earth stood at attention, wearing the new black and silver uniforms of the United Earth Fleet. For thousands of years, the Kralaxian Empire has conquered and enslaved peaceful species across the galaxy, she said, her voice firm and clear. They believed they could do the same to Earth. They were wrong. She paused, looking at the determined faces before her. Today, we begin a new mission. Not just to defend our world, but to free all those who suffer under Kralaxian rule. We will show the galaxy that freedom is stronger than fear, that cooperation is more powerful than conquest. Throughout the ship, similar scenes played out as captains briefed their crews. Earth had built 10 new hybrid vessels using Kralaxian technology, crewed by the best soldiers and scientists humanity had to offer. Captain Eric Bennett had been given command of a fast attack squadron, consisting of 5 ships built for speed and stealth. His new vessel, the Interceptor, was smaller than the Valiant but 3 times faster. The Kralaxians rule through fear and technological superiority, he told his captains during their mission briefing. We've eliminated both advantages. Their subject worlds fear them because they believe the Empire cannot be defeated. We've proven that's not true. He brought up a star map showing the edge of Kralaxian territory, highlighting a small solar system near the border. Our first target is Proxima Centauri. The Kralaxians have built an outpost there to monitor the approach to Earth. It's lightly defended. They don't expect us to attack them. That's exactly why we're going there first. The captains studied the mission details. After months of defensive fighting, they were eager to take the offensive. Remember, Bennett concluded, we're not just fighting for Earth anymore. We're fighting for all species oppressed by the Empire. Show them that humans fight with honor, even against those who showed us none. In her laboratory aboard the Defiance, Dr. Olivia Martinez led a team studying the captured Kralaxian technology. Her greatest discovery had been understanding their faster-than-light drive system. Their jump drives are actually quite inefficient, she explained to Admiral Hayes during her daily briefing. They're using a brute force approach to fold space. We've modified the design to reduce energy consumption by nearly 30%. Hayes nodded, impressed. What does that mean for our mission? Martinez smiled. It means we can travel farther and faster than the Kralaxians believe possible. We can strike deeper into their territory than they think we can reach. This advantage would prove crucial in the coming campaign. The Kralaxians had built their defensive systems based on their own technology's limitations. They never imagined an enemy could bypass their outer defenses to strike directly at their core worlds. Major Susan Richards, now promoted to colonel, prepared her Special Forces team for their most dangerous mission yet. After leading the successful capture of Admiral Crooks, she had been tasked with training elite boarding teams specially equipped to infiltrate Kralaxian vessels and installations. The Kralaxians still underestimate humans, she told her soldiers as they checked their new combat suits, a combination of Earth body armor and adapted Kralaxian technology. They think in straight lines: attack, defend, retreat. We need to think differently, be unpredictable. Her first mission would be a raid on a Kralaxian shipyard where new warships were being built to replace those lost at Earth. Intelligence gathered from captured Kralaxian databases indicated that the shipyard also held thousands of slaves from dozens of conquered worlds, forced to work in terrible conditions. This isn't just about destroying their ships, Richard said. It's about showing the galaxy that the Empire isn't invincible. It's about giving hope to those who have none. Kevin Wright had become the head of Earth's Alien Communications Division. His successful virus attack during the Battle of Earth had made him a hero, but he wasn't satisfied with just defending his home planet. We've cracked their communication systems, he explained to President Miller. Now we can use their own network against them. He demonstrated his latest project, a system that could hijack the Kralaxians' communication channels to broadcast messages to their subject worlds. Psychological warfare, he explained. We're going to show everyone in the Empire evidence of their defeats. We're destroying their myth of invincibility. The president nodded approval. The truth is our most powerful weapon against an empire built on lies. On Krelax Prime, the homeworld of the Empire, Emperor Zorn faced a situation no previous ruler had ever encountered in the Empire's 10,000-year history. Reports of defeats came in daily. Subject worlds that had been peaceful for centuries were suddenly rising in rebellion. How is this happening? He demanded of his advisors. How could one primitive world cause so much damage? The truth was something the Emperor didn't want to hear. The Kralaxian Empire had grown soft over millennia of easy victories. They had conquered peaceful species who surrendered rather than face destruction. Humans were different. They had spent their entire history fighting, against nature and against each other. The humans are sharing our weaknesses with our subject worlds, one advisor finally admitted. They're encouraging rebellions everywhere. We're fighting wars on 100 fronts. Zorn's face darkened with rage. Then we will crush these humans, once and for all. Gather our remaining fleets. We will defend the homeworld at all costs. The Battle of Proxima Centauri lasted less than an hour. Captain Bennett's squadron struck with such speed and precision that the Kralaxian outpost had no time to call for help. The Earthships appeared suddenly from hyperspace, disabled the outpost's communications, and systematically destroyed its defenses. Minimal casualties on both sides, Bennett reported to Admiral Hayes. We've secured the outpost and freed 300 slaves from 6 different worlds. Hayes nodded in satisfaction. Well done, Captain. This is just the beginning. News of the victory spread quickly, carried by both human broadcasts and escaped slaves returning to their homeworlds. Throughout the Empire, oppressed species who had lived in fear for generations began to whisper about the humans who fought the Kralaxians and won. Colonel Richards' raid on the shipyard was equally successful. Her team infiltrated the facility, planted explosives on 20 ships under construction, and led thousands of slaves to waiting Earth vessels. The look on their faces, she later told Hayes. When we broke their chains and told them they were free, I'll never forget it. Many of the freed slaves asked to join the fight against their former masters. Some returned to their homeworlds to organize resistance, while others offered to serve aboard Earth vessels, providing valuable knowledge about Kralaxian worlds and customs. The campaign continued for months. Earth forces struck deeper into Kralaxian territory, freeing slaves, destroying military targets, and broadcasting evidence of the Empire's defeats. With each victory, more subject worlds rose in rebellion, and the once mighty Kralaxian military found itself overwhelmed. Finally, 1 year after first contact, Admiral Hayes led a coalition fleet toward Kralax Prime itself. Alongside human ships, flew vessels from 24 formerly enslaved species, all united against their common oppressor. The final battle took place in orbit around the Kralaxian homeworld. Emperor Zorn had gathered his remaining forces for a last desperate defense. The fighting lasted 3 days, but the outcome was never in doubt. The coalition forces, combining human innovation with the unique abilities of multiple alien species, systematically broke through the Imperial defenses. When the palace was finally breached, Emperor Zorn was found not on his throne, but attempting to flee in a small shuttle. Captain Bennett personally placed the Emperor under arrest. How? Zorn demanded as he was led away in restraints. How could you defeat an empire that stood for 10,000 years? Bennett's answer was simple. You made the mistake of attacking a species that had spent its entire existence learning how to survive against the odds. We've been preparing for this moment since the first human looked up at the stars and wondered what threats might lie beyond. 1 month later, representatives from 50 formerly subjugated species gathered on Earth to form the Galactic Confederation, a democratic alliance dedicated to mutual defense and peaceful cooperation. President Miller addressed the historic assembly. The Kralaxian Empire believed conquest was the natural order of the universe. We have proven them wrong. Different species working together, each contributing their unique strengths and perspectives, can accomplish far more than any empire built on fear and domination. As the new era dawned, humanity found itself not only surviving but taking its place as a respected member of the galactic community.